Hello and welcome to episode 318 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
And I'm James Whittingham.
This week, Toyota sales are down and the company is blaming high gas prices. Meanwhile, EV sales are up and the company is blaming high gas prices. It's almost like the two are related. Now, someone please convince Toyota to listen to our podcast so they can start making more EVs.
Hear, hear.
Also, heat pumps are on track to outsell conventional air conditioners. If you're going to cool your house, you might as well get a unit that can also produce heat. It's a 2-for-1 deal, like pizza slices. So if anyone ever asks you to explain how a heat pump works, just tell them it's like getting 2-for-1 pizza slices.
All that and more on this summer edition of the Clean Energy Show.
All right, here we go.
I am barely here, Brian Stockton. Barely here. A team of doctors has injected me with things to get me through a shortened version of the show today.
Yep.
It was rough. It's been 2 weeks and a day since my surgery, and I'm having a slow recovery. And the operation went well. The recovery, not so well. I'm on the older end of the scale of people who get this done, and it's just hard to get fluids in, and it's you have to stop for half an hour after you drink, then you eat. Then you wait for an hour, then you drink. And if you screw that up, and if you don't do it, and then there's constipation and all kinds of horrible things that come with it, and dehydration. So I'm always on the cusp of dehydration. You have to drink during the night, otherwise I will get dehydrated. This is for now. It should get better. I'm not getting my protein in. I'm sick of protein shakes. I'm sick of Greek yogurt. Those are the two things I could eat for 2 weeks. Yesterday, I started to introduce actual soft food. So I had some scrambled eggs, but I had to just have a little bit and test it. And it went well. My stomach did not reject it. And I had a protein pancake mix, which I can't have normal flour and things like that. So, and every food I eat has to be high in protein, no matter what it is. So, it's my legs are wobbly and weak when I try to go to the bathroom. Like it's a weakened state of. So this is mostly your show. I did come up with a couple of things. I wanted to talk about a terrible experience I had in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 2 nights and one day. And the first night, it was hell. They force you to sleep on your back, and I can't sleep on my back for whatever reason. But I was tortured with exhaustion and pain because they pump you full of this gas in your abdomen so they can dig around and do other things. They put 8 holes in me instead of 5. I have not got an explanation, but the surgeons said it went well. They said I had a longer than expected abdomen. And, I think women get this operation more than men. Maybe the men die. I don't know. Maybe they die off before they get the operation. I'm not sure how that works. But so the first night was unpleasant. The second night, I started to get some Z's. And then I woke up at 4 a.m. and I said, oh, shit, the refinery. And it was in the hospital. It wasn't at home. It was in the hospital. The hospital, and I don't know if it's always like this or since COVID, but they have a ventilation system that's always pumping in fresh air. And the refinery was there in the hospital, in my room, and everywhere else, in a horrible, horrible, disgusting, filthy, maddening way. And I went and I looked at the live wind maps, and sure enough, direct line to the refinery. And it was the refinery. The refinery is about, 3.5, 4 kilometers away. The hospital's in the middle of the city. The refinery is on the edge of the city. We're a city of about, in the actual city here, around maybe 200,000 people, not in the greater area, but in the actual city. And it's not a huge city, but it's enough to affect, obviously, the hospital. And I was thinking about all the people who were there dying. And here's one last gasp of the petrochemical industry for you. One toxic hour of shit that you had to breathe in. There's probably people there dying because of petrochemicals. Like I one last little dose of it, just for good measure. The nurses, the doctors, the staff, all breathing this crap because we're addicted to petrochemicals and we're addicted to having some good jobs in our city. Well, I'm done with that. I've said it before, but I'm done with it. I'm done with the good jobs. I know jobs are important, but you can't kill people. You can't make people sick for jobs. You just can't. I don't care how good the jobs are. You can't deny that what that refinery in our city is doing is dangerous and it's hurting people. And that was a really, really stark example. I can't think of a more stark example of how crappy that is.
Yeah. And of course, you have a system at your home where you have automated fans and stuff. And so things can kind of switch on and off when, the air quality gets poor. And obviously, you need to consult with the hospital and they need to get some kind of similar system where they stop bringing in the fresh air when it turns sour like that.
Well, I don't know that they can just turn off the system and recirculate. They might have to filter the air, I don't know. I'm not an air person. I don't know the details, but I just wonder, I don't think they can turn off the air if there's disease in the hospital. But they would certainly have to filter it. And that's an expense for the hospital and not for big oil. It's another subsidy for big oil. We're taking care of your problems for you.
Yeah. And you could probably at least just recirculate. Well, yeah, it's a hospital, so you don't really want to recirculate.
You really want fresh air, especially in the post-pandemic era. And I would imagine you would anyway. But, I went and I took a picture at the refinery out the window. I could see it directly. It was on an upper floor and it seemed so close yet so far away. Yeah. But I don't know how often that happens, but it's disgusting. It's just, it's a terrible thing. And if you were just joining us, I had, speaking of climate change, got hit by golf ball and larger than golf ball size hail in my suburban home, my old suburban home. It's suburbia, but it's built in 79. And our whole area was hit, and we had the insurance adjuster come from Vancouver because they had to bring in people. And he said he was in Puerto Rico. Yeah. And he said, I learned a lot from Puerto Rico, and a lot of solar panels there got damaged in hurricanes. And he said, but I understand, where you live, there's a good solar potential and everything. And so we live in this big house that was built as a passive solar house that was trying to use thermal heating. So they built this extra huge attic, which is almost a floor to itself. So it's really high up. But he had this extendable ladder that just sort of collapsed to like a briefcase, and he just pulled it out, went up the roof.
Yes.
I said, are you okay? I mean, do not hurt yourself for this. And he said, they wouldn't let me do it if I couldn't do it. So he's up there parkouring on different roofs, and he's looking at our roof, and he thinks it needs replacing because of the hail. So our insurance may not fully pay, but may replace the roof because it's older. It's, they sort of prorate. They say, I don't know how we're going to come up with that cash, but that's one thing that's going to happen. But in doing so, we have to take off the solar panels. My solar company, your solar company too, went out of business promptly when government policy changed.
Yeah.
So I can't call them up and say, take the panels down. And, I'm assuming insurance pays for this. It has to, or I'm hooped. And yeah, that's a big procedure. I don't know if you need, utilities approval or anything like that. But the good part of the story, I guess, is that the panels are fine. He sent a drone up.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not supposed to put a drone up in this area. And I think it's because of the pipeline plane. He said it's a restricted area.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But I could get a drone. The guy was really good with a drone. Like, he didn't go out into the field. He just was like 2 inches from our house, went straight up, looked at it. He wouldn't go on that side of the house because he said it was too steep.
Yes.
But he sent the drone up and they look okay. They're functioning as well. That doesn't mean they're not damaged. But I think a friend of ours, Stephen, had his panels facing west and they did get hurt. It seems like the hail comes from the west and the thunderstorms have a strong forces from the west usually, in my experience.
Right.
So I don't know. I think he had some damage from hail. But this is a climate change thing. I'm frickin' 60 years old almost. I never seen golf balls. I've heard about golf ball size hail. We are in southern Canada. We don't get golf ball size hail on a regular. And it's shattered my vinyl siding. And this is an issue because, Calgary, the city of Calgary is getting hail all the time. And the insurance industry is setting up planes. We've talked about this before. They're setting up 5 planes to seed the clouds to try and prevent hail damage.
Yeah.
But there's a quadrant of the city, the northeast, which is kind of, it's not the richest part of the city, but it's not the poorest either. But it has no insurance available for a lot of homes if you have vinyl siding. Now I can't change my siding, because vinyl is the cheapest. and I would have to put out money to change it. I don't even know if they would let me change it. But I feel like this is going to happen again at the pace we're going with climate change.
Well, I can tell you that the solar panels certainly can be removed by somebody else because we've had many roof repairs over the years. So we did about 2 or 3 years ago. We had to completely remove all the solar panels.
Oh, who did
Actually,
it?
not all of them.
Can you tell me who did it later? Can you?
Yes, I don't remember, but I figure it out.
Okay.
But, so there were 2 companies involved. There was like a solar company who took the panels off, and then the roofing company went in and repaired the roof, and then the solar company, came and put everything back on. So one would hope that if your roof does need replacing, one would hope that the insurance will cover the roof replacement, and part of the roof replacement is taking the solar panels off and putting them back on again.
My former sister-in-law, she's like 70, but she's been thinking about solar panels for the last 15 years. I don't know why. She's a slow mover, but it seems she's too old to do that. Like 70. Yeah. Your payback period is like 12 years here, maybe more. Probably more, actually, now, because we don't have incentives. So why do it? But she looked into the insurance, and the deductible for solar panels is $5,000. The deductible, if you have solar panel damage. Like, she was checking out different insurance. So, and we just found out that our solar panels weren't even included on our insurance, even though I told them we had them and I wanted them included in the total cost of the replacement value of the house. Fortunately, like weeks before, my partner put them back on and they were covered. But I hope that there's no change. I mean, our deductibles are going to go up, and our premiums are going to go up because we had a discount of not having any claims or anything. So I didn't think this was a possibility. I thought, okay, the house is going to burn down. I can see that happening because, people are very careless with our batteries in the house. But I don't think, anything else is going to happen. I didn't think this would happen.
Yeah.
Even though it happened about, when we dropped our son off for his first day of university, we came back and there was a quadrant of the city that was devastated. And it was about 2 kilometers or so, 3 kilometers west of us. So yeah, you go by there and all the siding was trashed, even worse than it is here. I noticed a lot of people don't have vinyl siding around here. Lucky bastards.
Yeah.
It's the modern fandangled thing that they put on our house when we bought it.
Yeah, and people are still doing a lot of it, as we talked about before. It's kind of the cheapest option right now.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have a shorter show this week, but what's new with you?
Well, this is my housing update. As you know, we're building a rammed earth cottage out at our cottage property, and it's all still going fine, but the problem there is massive, massive amounts of rain.
Oh, dear God.
This has been the summer of rain for us, and, and hail as well. So it's been wet ever since that hailstorm. And they've got even more out at where the cottage is. So far, everything is still basically on schedule, but it's been a complete deluge out there.
Yeah, rain sets back construction schedules, doesn't it? Is there any holes that are filling with water that they have to put in sort of plumbing stuff for the cistern and whatnot, the water tank? Is that?
Yeah, so far it's okay. They've tried to create a French drain so that the water kind of drains off the property a little bit quicker. So, it's not time to sound the alarms yet, but it's definitely on the verge of slowing things down. And of course, all the contractors, everybody in the industry gets slowed down by this kind of stuff.
And our summers
we'll
are
see how
relatively
it goes.
short here. The construction season is under the gun, so we need good weather.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll be looking up what French drain is after the show, immediately after, because I have not heard that
It's
one
basically
before.
a trench.
Okay.
It's a trench.
Okay. Do you have to discourage the French to call it a trench? I mean, come on.
La trench. So, speaking of rammed earth, I was talking a few weeks ago, about the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library that I'm very excited about. It's being built in North Dakota. It's completely inaccessible to most Americans. It's a very out-of-the-way place.
Sorry, Americans.
Build this.
They're building it for us Canadians.
So it's only a 5-hour drive for us. And I'm a big fan of interesting architecture, so I've been following along. The opening date is July 4th, just a few days from now as we record this. And obviously July 4th being the big celebration day in the U.S., so I imagine that's going to be a massive party down there. tickets are sold out. You can't go on opening day if you want to. But, later in the summer, it should be fairly accessible. But anyway, what I didn't know, it's also a rammed earth building.
Oh, really? The new one? The new library?
Yeah, the new Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. It doesn't look like the exterior walls are not rammed earth, but they have these huge 26-foot high rammed earth walls on the inside of the building. And they appear to be structural holding up the roof because it's a very kind of long, low, and wide building. And that's what it looks like. I mean, I'll have to go visit someday, but 26-foot high rammed earth walls in the middle of it that appear to be holding up the roof. And the roof itself is a living roof, and you can walk on it. They've got walking paths on the roof.
Wow. That's very
So you can walk
forward.
on the roof. Yeah. The whole thing is super forward. They're doing all this rehabilitation with natural plants, like they're trying to get it back.
This is in South Dakota. North Dakota. Okay.
It's costing hundreds of millions of dollars.
Jesus.
And I know all this because they have a YouTube channel. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, like environmental construction, they say it's beyond LEED standards. Like this is like one of the most environmentally friendly buildings ever built. And they have a YouTube channel with hundreds of videos explaining all this. So highly recommended if you're interested in rammed earth or ecological building techniques or natural plants. It really seems like kind of a remarkable thing they're doing.
You and your architect will have to do a road trip.
Yeah, I told him about it, and he was very excited to hear about it as well, and kind of went down the same rabbit hole of looking at it.
I think there'll be a documentary short, My Architect and I, and a road trip movie.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, moving on to stories. This is from Electrek and Bloomberg and many other outlets. Lots of people are reporting on this. Toyota sales have now dropped for the fourth straight month. So the last 4 months, Toyota sales are down. We've been warning Toyota since the beginning of this podcast that they need to get off their butts and make more EVs because it's going to come back to bite them at some point. And it would appear the reckoning is perhaps beginning. They're still the world's largest automaker. So, we can't exactly write their obituary just yet. But, China is the world's largest car market, and that's where they've been hit the hardest because, of course, China is going hard in EVs. More than 50% of cars sold in China are EVs. So Toyota sales were down 31% in May compared to May last year.
That is a huge drop. I was thinking a few percentage points, but that's pretty significant.
I mean, it's just 1 month. So, 1 month, they can be more exaggerated. 15% down for the full year. If you start in January, they're down 15%.
But isn't May red tag days at Toyota dealerships? I mean,
that sounds familiar. So possibly. So a spokesperson from the company said, a challenging market environment, including rising gasoline prices, continued, leading to a year-on-year decrease in sales. So, of course, Toyota, this was, always going to be a problem. And of course, it's just been exacerbated by, high gas prices and by China going so heavily into electric vehicles. But, Toyota does make electric vehicles. How much of their sales do you think are EVs coming from Toyota? What percentage?
Are we including Lexus in this, their premium brand?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay, well,
yeah, let's say no.
I'm going to say 1.5%.
It's 7%, which is not bad.
But they only have one EV, Brian Stockton.
No, they now have some more models, especially in China, where they are partnering with
different,
various Chinese players that are helping them out with, supplies and everything. So Toyota's EV sales in May were up 170%.
Huh. Well, you can't deny the effect of the Iran conflict and the closing of the Strait of Hormuz on this, because that seems pretty significant. And if it gives a boost of wind in the sales of Toyota's EV sales, then they get a bunch out there all at once. And then dealers become more familiar with them, customers become more familiar with them. And after the dust settles from this conflict, maybe oil prices crash. People were expecting higher oil prices than we got. And I think, and I've speculated before, that maybe it's because they don't realize they're not realistically factoring in the electrification of different things right now.
That's definitely a part of it, as well as drawing down reserves. And people adapted, I think, more than people were expecting. When you're faced with those high prices, you quickly kind of figure out other cheaper ways to do it.
But car prices have gone way up, like especially Toyota. And all car prices have gone up, and EVs are kind of slowly coming down, but at the same time, all the gas variants are going up. So it's kind of not what we expected. We expected gas cars to be the same, and then EVs would come down and bypass it. But it's working in a different way, a slightly different way, because they are coming down, but everything else is going up. So one of these days, people are going to realize that EVs are a good value, but I can't see gas prices staying up. I think they're going to tank, actually, at some point. Maybe next year, maybe the year after.
Yeah. It's always hard to predict.
Especially with OPEC falling apart, it's all about controlling the price.
Absolutely. So for the full year, Toyota EVs are up 138%. So 170% for May, but 138% in the whole year. They're, it's still only 7% of Toyota's overall sales, like I said, but obviously this is starting to be a bit of a problem for Toyota.
All right. Brian, I was driving home from the clinic. I heard that the National Public Broadcasters radio show What on Earth was playing, and they were talking about the 5-year anniversary since that heat dome that hit on the Pacific coast of Canada and a little bit in the Pacific coast of the United States, the Northwest Pacific coast there. It was devastating, and we actually saw it coming, and we're talking about it before it happened. Not that we're weather forecasters, but we had our eyes on it. And then 619 people died that week that this really hot weather heat dome was going on. And I'm not ignoring you, Europe, because you're experiencing one right now. But that's 619 people who died that they know of. And if that were a tornado, we'd be building monuments to that disaster, wouldn't we? I mean, it's a very quiet thing where the people die, people who have chronic conditions die, people who are elderly die. And a woman named Cindy McDougall was featured on the show. She got a hotel room because she had a chronic condition. She's not that old. She has a family, she has kids, she has a husband, and she lived in a military quarters. And they didn't have air conditioning. And so she got a hotel room. It was hard to find a hotel room, by the way, at that time.
Yeah.
But when she got one, it was too late. She'd had a chronic illness that had got set off, and she ended up having a heart attack.
It was terrifying that they would wake up and find me dead because there was no help. There were no ambulances. We had been warned that the wait for an ambulance could be anywhere from 6 to 16 hours. There were hours-long waits for even a firefighter or a police officer. And I knew that I needed to get to the hospital and that Clayton would have to get me there.
So I didn't hear about that aspect of it. That didn't make it out in the news stories. That is really startling to think that you can't get in. Let's say you have an actual heart attack and you got air conditioning. You're going to die because you can't get an ambulance, right?
Yeah.
Not all the time, but some people will die. Strokes, things that people need an ambulance. This is a very serious thing. And we speak of it because we know it's going to get worse. There's just no question that these events become more frequent and they become worse. And this is being shown in Europe right now. And I feel like we have to address this. We need to come up with a strategy. And the only thing I can think of, the only thing I can spitball is like having a volunteer force of people who are trained in first aid. Maybe they have extra first aid training for heat stroke and heat exhaustion, being at the ready for when the heat domes hit, because they will hit. And maybe some of them have air-conditioned cars that can be used to transport people to hospital or to give relief or to advise people. And maybe there's an app that can guide people. But this is large parts of the world are affected by this. Obviously, Europe is being hugely affected by this. Europe's early summer heat wave may have caused more than 1,300 excessive deaths since June 21st. According to the World Health Organization, temperatures were broken across parts of Europe, including Germany, Poland, and the Czech Republic. France reported 1,000 more deaths than expected since Wednesday. Many victims were over 65, with deaths at home rising by 40%. So It's just, we have to do something. We can't just sit and wait for the next one. It's something that has to be planned.
Yeah. Well, instead of a volunteer fire department, like a volunteer heat department, I think that's a good idea. Like you need to sort of train and mobilize maybe the people that are, younger and healthier. Because you're right, this is going to be huge. And then, there aren't enough ambulances to deal with it when it happens. And it's more spread out than, say, like if there's a fire in a building, then the disaster is
concentrated. Even a tornado is relatively concentrated.
Yeah. But, this type of heat dome, it spreads everywhere, out to the suburbs and then out to small towns as well.
Yeah.
I was watching another report from CBC where they were talking about Paris, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Paris and cooling strategies later on. But they said one of the issues in Paris is the roofs are mostly made of zinc. They have these metal roofs
really
in Paris that are just, if they were building them now, they maybe wouldn't make the roofs out of metal because it just tends to exacerbate the heat. And of course, when you're in a city, it's a heat island. Cities tend to be warmer than the countryside because of all the concrete. And well, the zinc roofs in Paris are not helping out. And another thing they mentioned, which I'd always kind of thought about, never really heard anyone say it before, but we know that an air conditioner or a heat pump, it's just moving the heat around. So it takes the heat that's inside your house and it moves it to the outside. Well, when you're in a city, that means all those hot air conditioning units that are sitting outside, well, they're contributing to that heat island. So this can have
it's like hundreds of thousands of hair dryers blowing at full blast.
That's absolutely it. And of course, usually this is spread out enough, but, when it's already a heat island in a heat event with zinc roofs, the air conditioners that are purring outside and throwing that heat to the outdoors are absolutely not helping. In France, it's about 25% of people that have air conditioning at home.
Mm-hmm.
Spain is higher. Spain is 40%. In the UK, it's only 14%. And we know that UK is going through a lot of heat events as well. Yeah. And we need larger cooling strategies.
And that takes electricity. One of the things they pointed out on the CBC show was that these 4, 5, 6-story apartment buildings that are older, where a lot of the more vulnerable people and elderly live, they can't handle air conditioning units, which just surprised me because we've had efficiencies in appliances and lighting that would have had some leeway, but, electronics are taking that up as well. But the buildings can't handle it. So they're trying to have programs to enable these buildings to have better electricity, because when they do upgrade it, they upgrade the rent, like the rents go up, and that's no good either.
Yeah. And often people rent, so you're not necessarily in control of everything to do with the heating and cooling. You might end up with a portable unit that sits inside your room, but we've talked about those aren't as efficient.
No,
so that means the hot part
better than nothing, I'm guessing,
in your
heat
room.
Dome.
There's an electricity infrastructure that would need to be in place for that as well. From Canary Media, heat pumps are on track to outsell conventional air conditioners. Speaking of air conditioning, so we've reported before on the show that heat pumps in the U.S. are now outselling gas furnaces, which is a good thing. Heat pumps are a way more efficient way to heat, and of course, they're better for emissions. And the trend is now happening with heat pumps versus air conditioners. So just 10 years ago, air conditioners were outselling heat pumps by 2 to 1. But if you look at the graph on this story from Canary Media, the two lines are slowly converging and they're about to cross fairly soon. AC units are still outselling heat pumps slightly, but the end is near. And part of it is like, when you talk about electric cars, part of it is having the options available to consumers. So part of it is the industry itself kind of getting on board and just offering these options to people. So once people have the option to buy an electric car at a reasonable price, they're more likely to do it. Well, once they have the option to buy a heat pump instead of an air conditioner, often they are taking that option because it's a 2-for-1 deal. Like I said, it does heating and cooling. And depending on where you live, you may not be able to replace your fossil fuel furnace completely with heat pumps. You may not, A, be able to afford it, and B, it might be very, very cold where you live, so it becomes a very difficult problem. But if you're going to cool your place anyway, you might as well get a heat pump that can possibly do double duty and do some or all of the heating in your house.
Yeah. I think most places in the world where there's populations, the heat pumps work just fine. There's a challenge of getting the people to install them properly, experienced people.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference if you're coming from, say, fuel oil heating or baseboard heating where it's using a lot of electricity. It doesn't create heat, it moves heat. It sucks it out of the air outside and brings it in. Even if it's not warm out, it finds that heat in the air. It's physics. And don't ask me to explain that right now. I can't explain anything right now.
James, a heat pump, it's like a 2-for-1 pizza slice deal.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
All right, Ed from Bloomberg, getting back to Paris. Paris is using the Seine River to help cool the city as Europe suffers through this current horrendous heat wave. And I love talking about these kinds of district cooling systems. We sometimes talk about district heating systems as well, which can be often a more efficient way to heat buildings and neighborhoods and cities. But yeah, there's district cooling systems as well. There's one in Toronto that we've talked about a few times that I'm a huge fan of. So what they do in Toronto is they take very cold water from Lake Ontario, one of the Great Lakes. It's very, very deep. So at the bottom of Lake Ontario, it's a constant 4 degrees Celsius, which is just a few degrees above freezing. And they take that, they pump it into various stations, and they cool many large office towers in Toronto with district cooling that comes from the Great Lakes. So in Paris, they don't have the Great Lakes. So they don't have that super cool starting point for the water, but they do the exact same thing artificially. They cool it down to 4 degrees Celsius, that exact same temperature that we've talked about that they get from Lake Ontario. So it's artificial, but they say that it still uses 50% less electricity than standard standalone air conditioning systems. And of course, that's going to cut your emissions as well, depending on where your electricity comes from. So there are other cities in Europe that do this as well. They take water from the Seine, and then that's what they cool down. And eventually, at some point, that slightly warmer water gets put back into the Seine. A lot of it runs on a closed loop, so it's not all going in and out. But apparently this started in the 70s in Paris. So they've been doing this for a long time. It started on a small scale. They expanded it quite a bit in the 1990s, and now they're going to expand it even more, which, seems to make sense as Paris grapples with this terrible, terrible heat wave. It's so hot. They've been closing down their museums early quite often. They just can't keep it cool enough.
And it's early in the summer. We are not into summer yet here in the Northern Hemisphere, and this is already happening. And we're having weird patterns here, which is producing hail. This weird pattern we're in here is not normal. It's not unprecedented, but my gosh, we're having weird weather now. That is our show for this week. It's an abbreviated show due to my illness, and we will have some shorter summer shows like this one coming to you on a regular basis, perhaps through July, should I survive. If you want to contact us, the Clean Energy Show, about anything, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com is our email. That's cleanenergyshow, all one word, @gmail.com, and voicemail at speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow. If you're a Patreon supporter, thank you. And we probably won't have a bonus episode anytime soon, but we will get to it eventually. Sign up for our Patreon to support the show if you like. And thanks to our Patreon executive members on our Clean Club, Green Bastard, Brent Rowley, and Tiernan. And Brian, I hope to see you next week.
Yeah, well, it's good to have you back. I know you feel terrible, but you look great.
Doing the show? No, I don't look great. You cannot see the circles under my eyes.
No.
I've been on a prison camp diet. My muscles and everything and brain cells have been eaten by my metabolism. Everything's going away. Hopefully this is the corner that gets turned and I get some energy soon and be back to my normal perky self, because I've got a lightning round so big it'll take up 2 shows.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody soon.
Are you noticing your car insurance rate creep up even without tickets or claims? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry handles the legwork by comparing quotes side by side from over 50 top insurers so you can confidently hit buy. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Jerry even tracks rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Don't settle for higher rates. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/libsyn today. That's jerry.ai/libsyn.